Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics, and the Labour government have launched a pensions review in order to urgently work out a way to make sure that future generations of retirees do not end up in abject poverty. The review has also included launching a review into the pension age, which has obviously caused a bit of alarm with the way some outlets are reporting it. So what's the review actually about? And what do we need to know really about the pension system now and in the future? But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So this is an odd one, a video about pensions, which will actually be of relatively little interest to pensioners. In fact, the younger you are, the more important this review is. The situation, as the government has set out, is that we're heading for a retirement crisis. They say that half of all working age people are not paying anything into a pension. As we know, having to survive on the state pension alone is not really ideal. If you own your own home outright, so you have no accommodation costs, and if you remain in relatively good health throughout almost all of your retirement, the state pension on its own would mean pretty tight budgets. Not necessarily disastrous, but if you rent or have extra costs for whatever reason in retirement, not really enough. Basically, if you want a comfortable retirement, you need another pension. A works pension at least, and probably some money put into a separate investment fund or private pension if you want to be looked after. And too few people are doing that. So the review is mainly looking at ways in which we can make sure people are paying enough into retirement funds later in life. The last Labour government made some improvements. They did look ahead a bit, getting the ball rolling in terms of automatic enrolment into workspace pensions, but not enough is being paid into them, even for those who do that. But at the same time as this review, the government have also instigated a review into the pension age as well. Now, that obviously alarms people because it's early. There are regular reviews of pension age. The last one was in 2023, so we weren't really due for one for another few years. So because Labour have started that one early, there's all sorts of mad ideas floating around in the tabloids, but the review is just so that the entire pension system can be examined at once, I think. Yes, any pension system which is looking ahead at an ever-increasing retired population and economic uncertainty is likely to conclude that you want to reduce that retired population by, bunging the age of retirement upwards. And that probably is on the cards for younger people out there. I mean, at the moment, we're heading towards a retirement age of 68, and I should just miss that one out. And you can't imagine that's where it's going to end. But that is not down to the timing of this review. The situation right now is state pension age has just changed to 66 quite recently. It increases to 67 in literally a few years' time. So that will be my state pension age. And then it goes up to 68 by 2046. The reason the age keeps going up, and you would think will continue to keep going up, is not because people are particularly fitter and healthier as they age now. In fact, it's purely because of the cost of sustaining an increasingly large percentage of retired people. Not just a greater number, but a greater percentage, which is crucial. And it's this which is going to create big problems for the future. See, it's not clear how just increasing the pension age into the rest of this century will solve the problems or even delay them. Like, consider the job market trajectory. So it looks like we now have stopped living longer, which I guess is good for managing pension funding. But we have a declining birth rate. We also have become a bit anti-immigration of late. This means that we're going to struggle to get enough workers to grow the economy and pay for those pensions. Okay, not to worry, advances in technology can pick up the slack. More advanced robotics and AI will power lift our economy. Well, they might. However, this creates extra problems. First of all, machines don't get wages or pay income tax if they did. So if an employer takes on a load of tech, which can allow them to do away with workers, the government misses out on that extra income tax. Now, it's true that that might make profits go up, so you get more tax from profits, okay, but that doesn't work out to be as much unless there's a big change in the tax system. Apart from anything else, I mean, workers are not only going to pay a higher percentage of tax on average than the equivalent amount of profit if they weren't needed, but also that worker with their untaxed money, their wages, spends it on other things for which there'll be like VAT and other things on it, right? So in theory, our economy could actually be growing at a decent rate. Yeah, technology might get our economy growing. but tax revenues would not necessarily keep up if we're not careful. And it's the tax revenues more than GDP which is needed to pay for those pensions. Also, if we keep moving towards more and more productivity in the UK being provided by large multinational corporations, tax revenues could sink even further as we transition to a lower labour-based economy. If that is how we move to square the circle of declining birth rate, but hostility to immigration, which at the moment is definitely the direction we're going in. So even without considering the impact of such an economic model on employment opportunities, which would be a whole different topic sprinkled with some form of UBI, the threat to pension funding in the future is not just that we have an increasing proportion of our population being retired, but various threats to the normal source of funding. It was all so much easier in the early days. In 1909, we had our first sort of state pension. You got something if you were 70 years old or older, but the average life expectancy at the time was 52. So the government didn't exactly struggle. In 1925, we had the more familiar contributions-based system come in, which could be accessed at 65. But life expectancy was still lower than that at 58. Essentially, state pensions were born out of the notion that you had to exceed expectations for old age before you got anything. Now, you fast forward to the year 2000, the state pension age was like 65 for men, 60 for women, but with life expectancy at 77. Because as the 20th century progressed, life expectancy increased fairly robustly to meet state pension age, nudge past it, and then blast past it. And by this time, our birth rate had already been in decline for some time. Like all advanced economies, we're not unique in this. We're not having enough babies to sustain a stable population. There's various reasons for that. This has led to a great need for economic migration, which has led to greater anti-immigration sentiment. Ironically, we are resisting the thing which is allowing our economy to keep pace and then moaning about the stagnant economy. And when it comes to age, although the state pension age has been increasing with time, it hasn't been going up as quickly as life expectancy. The latest figures I can find show it to be about 82 years old, life expectancy. That is 16 years above the current state pension age. At the turn of the century, the gap was 12 years. More for women, but the pension age was equalised soon afterwards. So in terms of the pension age, it used to be the case that a state pension wasn't enjoyed by that many people because most would die before reaching the qualifying age, or at least not last much longer if they did get that milestone. Now, it's not just that the vast majority are expected to reach state pension age, but are expected to live much longer beyond it. That being said, it would be a brave government who tries to reset it even back to the start of the century by whacking up the pensionable age by about 5 or 6 years in one go. And when I say brave, in politics, that is a synonym for stupid. So despite some mad stories about the pension age going up to 74, there are several reasons why this will not be the case anytime soon. First, like I said, only a government trying to lose the election would do that in one go. And no, despite appearances, Labour are not actually trying to retire early themselves. Second, the review has only just begun. Like literally nothing's even been considered yet. Sometimes when a review is chugging along and a few things have been considered, sometimes things are leaked in terms of this is the direction we're going. But the review is literally not met yet. So nothing's been discussed, let alone concluded. The review is going to take years. We'll find out nothing for like 2 years at least, I think. Third, the government are going to have to come to terms with a fundamentally different relationship between both the size of the retired population and the working population. An economy with artificially restricted economic migration and a birth rate which is too small to maintain, let alone grow the population, means you need a completely new distribution of wealth model for the future. Fourth, people just become less productive as they age. Sorry. In some jobs, there will be a noticeable decline in productivity, even at my age, never mind in your late 60s. There's just some jobs you can't do. How do you persuade businesses to hire older and older people when they will give them less bang for their buck? You can't just expect people to keep working longer because the number of jobs you can actually do properly rapidly fades away as you get into your 60s and beyond. Or maybe the government are comfortable with getting as many elderly people into work as they can and manage the rest with unemployment systems as being cheaper than an earlier state pension for all. Not sure that would be great for votes though. So who knows what the review will eventually come up with. Nothing palatable for politicians. I'm going to guess there's no easy answers on this one. In terms of what might happen in the short term, so the obvious potential casualty is the triple lock. Labour have committed to the triple lock for this parliament, whereby the state pension increases in line with inflation, CPI inflation, average earnings growth, or 2.5%, whichever is the greater. But they are belly aching about the cost. The Tories have also been making unfriendly noises towards it, I should say. But it would, again, be a brave move to muck about with that as well. That being said, the reality is that the state pension is funded through taxes. People think of it in terms of like a real pension. It's not a real pension. And they think of that because, of course, you pay contributions. But it's not a contributions-based pension, really. Even though to qualify, you have to have made so many contributions. It's funded each year through the taxes raised that year. So the state pension is funded by people working at that time on that basis. So the attraction for them, for workers paying it, is when they retire, the younger workers will fund their pensions in return. But it's not a self-sustaining model. The model is completely run out of road. We've gone from the pension age being above life expectancy to below it, to well below it. And the gap has been getting greater, which means that the percentage of tax revenues needed to fund it has been increasing, which in turn means that working people need to pay a higher tax rate to fund it. This is why Labour wants to do more to get people to pay into a works pension and make sure that the contributions to those pensions are enough to live on. The state pension in its current form is fundamentally different to that in the first half of the 20th century as it was being developed. And there are a whole heap of economic factors making themselves known which are putting further pressure on it. But like I say, we know nothing yet about what will be decided. We don't even know what's being discussed. Whatever is decided will be of more consequence to younger workers than older ones, and least of all to already retired people, even though it could affect everyone to a degree. And if you are a young worker, I know it's tempting to save money by not paying into your works pension, but trust me, it's not going to work out for you in the end. In fact, I'd say get your work pension going. Remember, with a works pension, your employer has to pay contributions as well. It's a decent deal. Some are better than others. My teacher's pension's one of the better deals, but they're all a better deal than a private pension, because in a private pension, you have to pay all of the contributions yourself. So if you haven't already got it, get that up and running. An investment ISA could also be a good shout. I've started that this year. But certainly it will be the case that the earlier you plan for what is going to be a very different retirement environment, the better. But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.